Now we have item 6. Paul is from the Waitai Coastal Community Linwood Community Board, and he's going to talk to us about something. What is it? You've got 5 minutes to tell us what you want to tell us about.
Tēnā koutou katoa, Mr Mayor, councillors.
Local alcohol policy.
Local alcohol policy. May I take this opportunity to congratulate you all on your election and say I and the whole Waitai Community Board look forward to working with you this term. So I want to talk about local alcohol policy. So on the 30th of October this year, Justice Minister Kiritapu Allen announced that the government would be making a raft of reforms in 2 stages to the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012. The first stage is to include removing the special appeals process, which is to the Alcohol Regulatory and Licensing Authority, known as ALA, that has been used to impede the implementation of local alcohol policies, meaning appeal will only be available on judicial review to the High Court. Waitai represents some of the most deprived communities in Christchurch and New Zealand, and the international and domestic evidence is clear that such communities bear the brunt of alcohol-related harm. It's in the interests of our communities that Christchurch has an evidence-based local alcohol policy, and given the government announcement, no time should be wasted gathering information and resources. And I suspect a lot of the work is already being done, but also a lot has changed, including what we know about what causes the harm in New Zealand, which is off licences predominantly. In 2012, Parliament passed the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act in response to the recommendations made by the Law Commission's Alcohol in Our Lives report. The intention of Parliament was to reduce harm being caused by alcohol by giving communities more say and making licences harder to get and easier to lose. The 2 main mechanisms of control were the local alcohol policies and district licence hearings, but neither of these have performed as hoped. The local alcohol policy process has been litigated heavily and bogged down by endless appeals to ALA from the alcohol industry and supermarkets. Christchurch decided not to proceed with its provisional local alcohol policy, despite having spent $1.1 million on it, due to the threat of ongoing litigation, and some might say an abusive process under the current law. The supermarkets have appealed the Auckland provisional local alcohol policy all the way to the Supreme Court. We're awaiting the outcome of that, costing millions of dollars. LAPs were meant to provide territorial authorities, local democracies, and communities the means to make significant decisions regarding when, where, and how alcohol is sold. Parliament's intent was that local control over local matters. However, it's been frustrated by the special appeals process currently available under the Act. So what we're asking you to do is to ask the staff to start the process of gathering the resources and information necessary in anticipation of imminent legislation change. And before I conclude, please allow me to say that our community board cares very much about the Pages Road Bridge and the organics processing plant and want neither of those projects delayed in the annual plan. Thank you very much, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Paul. That was really good. And in some cases, you're preaching to the converted, because I used to be out there. So
and
go there.
The hospitality industry has nothing to fear from an evidence-based local alcohol policy.
We're talking alcohol policy. Any questions for Paul? No, all good. Thank you very much for coming in. Oh, sorry, Mark, I didn't see your finger.
You'd like to move?
Oh, yes,
Yep,
thank
I
you.
can move that.
And Tyler, thank you very much.
Gotcha.
Any debate?
So does anyone want to debate any of this? No? Well, look at Yanni. So I'd like to put in motion. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Phil, I took no part. I took no part in the vote, just
Start
noted
back.
I hold a licence.
Thank you very much, Aaron. That's good.
Thank you, Grant.
So now we move on to item 7 and 8 together. The Zone Committee representatives will now provide us with their update reports. Thank you very much for coming in. So we've got Banks Peninsula, Christchurch West Melton and Selwyn Waihora.
Good morning. My name is Gina Weibel. I'm from the Banks Peninsula Water Zone Committee. Firstly, I'd like to welcome new councillors and congratulate those of you who were re-elected. The Zone Committee appreciates your continued support, and I'd like to thank Council for continuing to fund a number of programs that are important to the Zone Committee and the community, such as the Council's continuing work on water supply and wastewater improvements on Banks Peninsula, the implementation of the Whakaora Healthy Harbour program in Whakaraupo, Littleton Harbour, the continuation of fish passage barrier remediation and biodiversity work. And we also commend Council for the Southwest Port Hills and Littleton Harbour erosion and sediment control project, and hope to see the funds used to help prevent hillside erosion and sediment, particularly from CCC infrastructure. Similarly, the funding from the Cut Slope erosion trial in the Christchurch Adventure Park, and we hope Council will continue to, with the other sites identified in Whakaraupo, and implement the findings of the trial so that sediment loss is reduced, particularly on roadside and other cuttings. We also request that CCC fixes erosion and sediment issues in Diamond Harbour that have been identified in a commissioned report via the Banks Peninsula Stormwater Management Plan. We will include all of the above points and expand on them when we write to you with our funding priorities for the next annual plan. So going back to the Zone Committee's work and our action plan, we've funded some really exciting projects this year, with our new fund allowing a greater range of projects to be supported, as we can now fund any initiatives that meet the Zone Committee's goals as set out in our action plan. So in particular, I look forward to the results of the Peka Peka long-tailed bat survey, as well as farm biodiversity planning that we are supporting Banks Peninsula Conservation Trust to work through with interested landowners. I'm also pleased that we were able to contribute to feral pig control, as they've been destroying native plantings and have a significant effect on biodiversity. We've also provided operational support to the Banks Peninsula Conservation Trust and continue to support a number of fencing and planting projects to protect our springs and waterways. So thank you for continuing to support this work and the Zone Committee's Action Plan Fund. I'm looking forward to that increasing to $100,000 again next year. Looking forward, we have a number of challenges ahead, particularly around water quantity and climate change and the effects they'll have on erosion and sediment movement, water quality and biodiversity, as well as water supply takes for both drinking water and stock water from the numerous but generally very small waterways and springs that we have on Banks Peninsula. Water takes may be particularly affected in the near future as implementation of Te Mana o Te Waio occurs over the next few years, and this is an issue that the Zone Committee will be working on next year. Lastly, I'd like to acknowledge the contributions from our previous council representatives, Councillor Andrew Turner and Community Board Chair Tori Peden, and ECAN Councillor Lan Farm, and also Liz Riley, who was the City Council Committee and Hearings Advisor for several years. They all provided extremely valuable contributions. And lastly, I'd just like to welcome new council representatives when our meetings resume next year, and also to welcome new committee member Andrea Davis and the return of Ben Manson following our refresh process. Thank you.
Morena, ko Annabelle Hassamanaho. I'm the chair of the Christchurch West Melton. Do you want any questions for Gina before I...
Or we can do them all.
Okay. So I'm chair of the Christchurch West Melton Zone Committee, and also introduce Mike Patchett, who is the deputy chair of the Christchurch West Melton Water Zone Committee. So I'm just going to take you through a highlights of our action plan, and then Mike is going to do a presentation around one of our key issues, which is around erosion and sediment control. So stormwater and stormwater engagement was one of our key highlights, and we had, in November, we had this Stormwater Superheroes Awards for industrial sites, and we awarded the champion stormwater superhero to Tunnel Wash, and I recommend you all go and visit Tunnel Wash, and also the other award to Ready Mix Concrete. So it was great to see their practices on the industrial sites. We also, the Otakaikino Stormwater Management Plan consultation, we were a part of that. Thank you to the council coming with us for that. And also a huge thank you to the Council for your joint support for the Enviro Hub and enabling the Stormwater Superhero trailer to go to events. And this here shows you the Stormwater Superhero trailer at a community event, and it's just a key part of those events and really engaging. It's a wonderful way to tell the story and to raise awareness. The proposed Addington Brook restoration, this Zone Committee strongly supports that proposed master plan, and if I'm correct in my understanding that you have approved stage 1 of that plan, so thank you, that's great. And just to really reinforce the significance as the Addington Brook feeds into the Otakaro Avon River, and it's a really key opportunity for building public awareness, engagement and knowledge around urban waterways and the issues facing them and the things that we can do to improve those waterways. And in saying that, I'd really just like to stress that, as you can see, the stage 1 is in South Higley Park, but the whole upper catchment is an industrial catchment, and really want to stress that the council increases compliance, monitoring and enforcement in this area, and that the ongoing work for installing the stormwater treatment system to improve the health of our waterways feeding into the Avon Otakaro as well. Another key area of our work has been around advocacy regarding copper and zinc to central government. So that's a key priority for the zone, to reducing these urban contaminants. You can see from cars, from brake pads and tyres, and all from industrial roofs. And thank you to the City Council with ECAN, with the joint advocacy to central government to get some action in this area. And we're heartened with the correspondence that's gone on in that area. And we look forward to, I think there's a potential meeting with MFE in 2023. So we look forward to being a part of that and some action in that area at that level. Erosion and sediment control, of course, is a key priority, as Gina has highlighted also in the Banks Peninsula Zone Committee. And we had a presentation from the City Council ECAN around the global stormwater consent, and this really outlined our existing processes for dealing with erosion and sediment control, and also understand that you took on extra staff, so thank you for that. But I really want to reinforce that this is a key focus, and we need ongoing focus and commitment to erosion and sediment control, and Mike is going to present on this at the end of the talk. Supporting community groups, this is one of our key functions, and as Gina also alluded to, the budget, which we hope to increase next year as well to 100,000, is a key way of supporting community initiatives, so it's been makes a huge impact. And then we've also gained feedback from especially the Opawa Heathcote Springs project, which we funded last year, and actually to initiate a great project and to take it to the next stage was great. And also providing ongoing support for the Community Waterways Partnership. There's huge potential in this area, and we need, thank you for your support in that area, and we look forward to the ongoing support in that as well. The development of the Healthy Waterways Action Plan, I'd just really like to emphasise that the Zone Committee really supports this and sees this as a key initiative for improving the health of our urban waterways. We are seeking a collaborative partnership for community and political support for the development and implementation of this plan. It's going to be a key driver for understanding where our health of our waterways are, the actions that we need to take, and how we're going to get there. And that Belinda Margetts is driving that within the council. Groundwater in the zone, we retain a key interest in groundwater, and we had a presentation from Dr. Helen Rutter and Andrew Raj, and really our interest lies around the issues of public drinking water with nitrates in the water, and also the relationship of groundwater and the impact of it to our spring-fed rivers, so we can't stop taking our eyes off the ball there. And this slide shows the movement from Helen's talk, the movement of the groundwater which is coming into Christchurch and our spring-fed rivers, which is largely coming from the Waimakariri River. And lastly, I'd just really like to acknowledge our past committee members. A huge thank you to Les Waholan, Kevin Brown, Sophie McInnes, Emma Norrish and Phil Clearwater, and council representatives, and all the work they've done. And Liz Riley, who Gina acknowledged as well, who's been a long-standing member of our committee and hearings advisor process. But also a welcome to our new members, Claire Piper and Kaylin Richardson Hall, and your own Tyler Harrison Hunt as the Taumutu Runanga representative, and Luke Smelly as a committee and hearings advisor. And we're also really looking forward to working with the new members from the City Council and ECAN and the Selwyn District Council. I'm now going to hand over to Mike. I can control this mic if you like. Or, I don't-
Might be
okay,
better off doing
for
that.
the next part of the talk.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to take interest in this topic. As Annabella said, the Zone Committee has a strong interest to influence better outcomes in erosion, sediment control and stormwater management towards our healthier waterways. The problem as we see it as a committee is that there's mass loads of sediment and other contaminants those sediments are carrying, discharging off urban and rural landscapes on highly erodible slopes into the estuary and into the Opawaho waterways. The result of that effectively is that the Opawaho Heathcote catchment has the poorest water quality of all the 5 catchments in Christchurch, primarily driven by the sediment loads and the contaminants that they carry. I want to show you, take you on a short story of the problems that are being encountered through urban developments. In this case, the Redcliffe Ratepayers Association contacted us and we had a discussion with Council and ECAN about the problems being generated by such developments on highly erodible steep slopes. Residents Association spent 2 years complaining about persistent storm-related sediment discharges and flooding in their street coming off that urban development, leaving a lot of sediment on the road and in the gutters and in the drains. Fairly evident there was quite a serious problem of lack of stormwater control and serious erosion on that erodible hill development. The ultimate problem really is that that's heavy sediment loads are discharging in large amounts into the estuary, forming large sediment plumes within the estuary and then out to sea. The issue of sediment erosion control is not confined to urban developments. Obviously, the Port Hills, with its loose soils, is highly erodible and very sensitive to a range of different types of erosion. The erosion such into the Opawaho is coming from 7 sub-catchments from the top of the Port Hills through rural landscapes, forestry and urban developments, contributing significant amounts of sediment and other contaminants into the Opawaho. That erosion comes in various forms on that rural landscape. We've got sheet erosion, gully erosion, tunnel erosion, stream bank erosion and mass slipping. A serious problem and multidimensional. Consequently, the Zone Committee has recommended recently to the both ECAN and the City Council that an independent audit of the environmental effectiveness of the regulatory instruments, the arrangements and the capacity building that apply to erosion, sediment control and contaminated stormwater management is conducted, and that includes a close look at how the comprehensive stormwater network discharge consent applies between the 2 organisations. And we are hopeful that if that was undertaken, that the audit outcomes could be used to improve those regulatory frameworks, instruments and the protocols between the 2 organisations for better environmental outcomes. I do understand, before I move on to this slide, that the Council in the new year will be considering that recommendation, and so we look forward to a constructive outcome from that deliberation. The committee is also aware that these issues with urban developments on steep slopes are a national agenda item, and there's an opportunity with the MRA reforms through the proposed Built Environment Act. This at the select committee stage at the moment. So the Zone Committee requests that the City Council strongly advocate for tighter planning and regulatory policies for high-risk developments on highly erodible hill slopes, such as the Port Hills. And finally, the Zone Committee considers that there's much better opportunities to collaborate more closely and constructively with the City Council. And we're particularly interested in collaborating on the Southwest Port Hills and Littleton Harbour erosion and sediment control project that's embedded in your long-term plan with a significant investment of $9 million, and we commend Council on that initiative. The challenge in that program over the years to come will be to determine the most cost-effective investments to reduce sediment and erosion in those erodible landscapes. And to that end, we again suggest that improving our environmental effectiveness of our erosion and sediment control planning and regulation, compliance monitoring, enforcement programs is key to tackling the source of many of those loads in urban developments. And further, the Zone Committee would like to open up a discussion with the council, and particularly the project team, about how we can improve our collaboration between the Zone Committees and that project team through the years to come. Our Zone Committee has in fact set up a subcommittee called the Cashmere Stream and Port Hills Working Group, and we'd like to be able to, through that vehicle, better engage council on the delivery of that program. So I thank you for taking the time and interest to listen to our presentation. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank you very much for those updates. It's very clear. And one of the things that, and you don't have to hang around, but we've got a Better Off funding coming up in about an hour or so's time. And in there is a rather healthy amount of money for planting on the Port Hills and other places. Of course, it's not an open slather, but there is some money there that a reasonably good chunk of dough that can be used for what you're talking about with the sediment control. So it's good to see the work that you're doing. Fantastic, Pauline.
I think just quickly, it was fantastic. I don't know if we've got your one on the hub. It'd be good to have that presentation. Was collaborating with us, that would be through maybe the Community Waterways Partnership that we're all in?
Possibly, that's a vehicle. That's still a forming vehicle in my view. It's a broad membership,
Yeah.
and we still don't have a cohesive mechanism to work within that partnership. So it's a developing good model. My proposition, I suppose, is that we've got two zone committees, Banks Peninsula and Christchurch, that could work more constructively with your project team delivering that
Right.
that erosion sediment control program.
And do you know if the Urban Waterways Committee that ECAN set up last term is going to continue?
I couldn't.
Were you on
answer
that, Annabelle? Were you on
No,
that?
sorry, I don't know. Shelley, have you got any idea?
Because that's another good way, because we've got a representation on that as well. We had, and so in the Clive Appleton's on that as well, and he's a good link into council.
Yes.
But I guess a good way to work with council is through the our representatives on those zone committees that are councillors.
Yes.
And maybe we just need to have some kind of like collaborative working, workshops or something like that now and then.
And I see the working group as as a key mechanism for pulling those people together as well. That's been established.
Thank you, Pauline. Now, we are running out of time. We've got Yanni and then Sarah.
So I just wanted to understand, and thank you for the work that you're doing. For those of us who have been around a few terms, it's kind of frustrating that we just kind of hear this repeated concern around sediment and erosion, and we still don't seem to be making good progress on addressing it. So I really appreciate the resolutions that you've put. My question was, why do we need to wait till the new year to pass a resolution to do what I thought was a very sensible piece of work, which is that independent review into the adequacy of the district planning and regulatory conditions?
So
could we not just pass a resolution today and get that work started?
because you will need the staff advice, councillor, which is what your colleague is also indicating. So
Yes.
it's not very long to the new year.
Yeah.
And staff advice will come alongside the recommendation.
It's just that we're doing our district work program, I think, next week. So is that going to be, are we going to have an opportunity to discuss it then?
She's not there, so I was looking for Jane. I've had a note passed to me very specifically that says the staff advice will be coming in the new year.
Right.
And that is literally, I mean, what are we on, the 7th of December
Yeah,
today?
and I
It's
guess
very
that's kind of
close.
the concern that's been raised with the zone reports to council, is that we just receive information, but we never seem to be able to make decisions. So, but anyway, I appreciate the work.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to quickly just commend you on the workshop you held with the adventure park, just to highlight that I really appreciate the proactive nature in which you're working with key
Tricky
strategic
situation.
people
Yeah.
on
you,
difficult issues to try and find solutions. So thank you for the work that
Thank
you've
you.
done on that.
Sarah.
Thank you.
Just quickly, Gina, you mentioned that you'd sent through the funding priorities for the next year. Has that been sent through already, or is it being sent?
Will be sent soon, yes.
Okay, no, that's great. And can we just make sure that gets presented to councillors as part of the annual plan process? Thanks.
Thank you. Well done. Thank you very much. Look forward to the next one when you come and see us. Okie dokie. So now we will rip on to item number 19, which is the Council Strategic Review of Christchurch City Holdings.
Oh, yes. Have you moved and seconded and...
Oh, sorry, Sam, I've shot off there. Someone, thank you, Pauline, Sarah, Mel. That's, I'd like to put that motion. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much. So now we've got